on, let us have a game. What shall we play? Hide and seek? Bob shall hide first. Should I hide? Very well, I must hide first. Okay, count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Excuse me, Mrs. Helmer.
Ah, what do you want?
Excuse me, the outer door was ajar. I suppose someone forgot to shut it.
My husband is out, Mr. Krogstad.
I know that.
What do you want here then?
A word with you.
With me? Go into the nurse. What? No, the strange man won't bother me. When he is gone, we'll have another game. You want to speak with me?
Yes, I do.
Today? It is not the first of the month yet.
No, it is Christmas Eve, and it will depend on yourself what kind of Christmas you want to spend.
What do you want? Today is absolutely impossible for me.
We won't talk about that till later on. This is something different. I presume you can give me a moment?
Yes, although...
Good. I was in Olson's restaurant and saw your husband going down the street.
Yes?
With a lady?
What then?
May I make so bold as to ask if it was Mrs. Lind?
It was?
Just arrived in town?
Yes, today.
She is a great friend of yours, isn't she?
She is, but I don't see...
I knew her too once upon a time.
I'm aware of that.
Are you? So you know all about it. I thought as much. Then I can ask you without beating around the bush. Is Mrs. Lind to have an appointment with your husband?
What right have you to question me, Mr. Krogstad? You one of my husband's subordinates? But since you ask, you shall know. Yes, Miss Lind is to have an appointment, and it is I who pledged your cause, Mr. Krogstad. Let me tell you that.
I was right in what I thought then.
Sometimes one has a tiny little bit of influence, I should hope. Because one is a woman, it does not necessarily follow that when anyone is a subordinate in position, Mr. Krogstad, they should really be careful to avoid offending
Who has influence?
Yeah, exactly.
Mrs. Helmer, it will be so good as to use your influence on my behalf.
What do you mean?
You will be so kind as to see that I am allowed to keep my subordinate position at the bank.
What do you mean by that? Who possesses to take your post away from you?
Oh, there is no necessity to keep up the pretense of ignorance. I can quite understand that your friend is very anxious to expose herself to the chance of rubbing shoulders with me. I quite understand, too, whom I have to thank for being turned off.
But I assure you...
Very likely. But to come to the point, the time has come when I should advise you to use your influence to prevent that.
But Mr. Krogstad, I have no influence.
Haven't you? I thought you said yourself just now.
Naturally, I did not mean for you to put that construction on it. What should you make of me to think that I have any influence of that kind on my husband?
Oh, I have known your husband from our student days. I don't suppose he is any more unassailable than other husbands.
If you speak slightly of my husband, I shall turn you out of the house.
You are very bold, Mrs. Helmer.
I am not afraid of you any longer. As soon as the new year comes, I shall in a very short time be free of the whole thing.
Listen to me, Mrs. Helmer. If necessary, I am prepared to fight for my small post in the bank as if I were fighting for my life.
So it seems.
It is not only for the sake of money. Indeed, that weighs least with me in the matter. There is another reason. Well, I may as well tell you. My position is this. I dare say you know, like everybody else, that once many years ago, I was guilty of an indiscretion.
I think I have heard something of the kind.
The matter never came into court, but every way seemed to be closed to me after that. So I took to the business that you know of. I had to do something, and honestly, don't think I've been one of the worst. But now I must cut myself free from all of that. My sons are growing up. For their sake, I must try and win back as much respect as I can in the town. This post in the bank was like the first step up for me, and now your husband is going to kick me down the stairs again into the mud.
But you must believe me, Mr. Krogstad. It is not in my power to help you at all.
Then it is because you haven't had the will, but I have means to compel you.
You don't mean that you will tell my husband that I owe you money?
Suppose I were to tell him.
It would be perfectly infamous of you to think of his learning my secret, which has been my joy and pride in such an ugly and clumsy way, that he should learn it from you, and it would put me in such a horribly disagreeable position. Only disagreeable.
Well, do it then, and it will be the worse for you. My husband will see for himself what a blackguard you are, and you certainly won't keep your post then.
I ask you if it was only a disagreeable scene at home that you're afraid of?
If my husband does get to know of it, of course he will at once pay you what he is still owing, and we shall have nothing more to do with you.
Listen to me, Miss Helmer. Either you have a very bad memory or you know very little of business. I shall be obliged to remind you of a few details.
What do you mean?
When your husband was ill, you came to me to borrow £250.
I didn't know anyone else to go to.
I promised to get you the amount.
Yes, and you did so.
I promised to get you the amount on certain conditions. Your mind was so taken up with your husband's illness that you were so anxious to get the money for your journey that you seem to have paid no attention to the conditions of our bargain. Therefore, it will not be amiss if I remind you of them. Now, I promised to get you the money on the security of the bond, which I drew up.
Yes, and which I signed.
Good. But below your signature, there are a few lines constituting your father a surety for the money. Those lines your father should have signed.
Should? He did sign them.
I had left the date blank. That is, say, your father should himself have inserted the date on which he signed the paper. Do you remember that?
Yes, I think I remember.
Then I gave you the bond to send to your post to your father. Is that not so?
Yes.
And you naturally did so at once, because 5 or 6 days afterwards, you brought me the bond with your father's signature, and then I gave you the money.
Well, haven't I been paying it off regularly?
Fairly so, yes, but to come back to the matter in hand, you must have been a very trying time for you, Mrs. Helmer.
It was indeed.
Your father was very ill, wasn't he?
He was very near his end.
And died soon afterwards.
Yes.
Tell me, Mrs. Helmer, can you by any chance remember what day your father died? On that day or month, I mean?
Papa died on the 29th of September.
That is correct. I have ascertained it for myself. And as that is so, there is such a discrepancy, which I cannot account for.
What discrepancy? I don't know.
The discrepancy consists, Mrs. Helmer, in the fact that your father signed this bond 3 days after his death.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Your father died on the 29th of September. But look here, your father dated his signature the 2nd of October. It's a discrepancy, isn't it? Can you explain it for me? It is a remarkable thing too. The words 2nd of October as the year are not written is your father's handwriting. But in one, I don't think I know. Well, of course, it can be explained. Your father may have forgotten to date his signature, and someone else may have dated it haphazard before they knew of his death. There is no harm in that. It all depends on the signature of the name. And that is genuine. I suppose, Miss Helmer, it was your father himself who signed his name here.
No, it was not. It was I that wrote Papa's name.
Are you aware of that dangerous convention?
It was impossible. Papa was so ill. If I had asked him for his signature, I should have had to tell him what the money was to be used for. And when he was ill himself, I couldn't tell him that my husband's life was in danger. It was impossible.
It would have been better for you if you had given up your trip abroad.
No, that was impossible. That trip was to save my husband's life. I couldn't give that up.
But did it never occur to you that you're committing a fraud on me?
I couldn't take that into account. I didn't trouble myself about you at all. I couldn't bear you because you put so many heartless difficulties in my way, although you knew what a dangerous condition my husband was in.
Mrs. Helmer, you evidently did not realize clearly what it is that you have been guilty of, but I can assure you that no one false step, which lost all my reputation, was nothing more than nothing worse than what you have done.
You? Do you ask me to believe that you were brave enough to run a risk to save your wife's life?
The law cares nothing about motives.
Then it must be a very foolish law.
Foolish or not, it is a law, which you will be judged if I produce this paper in court.
I don't believe it. Is a daughter not to be allowed to spare her dying father anxiety and care? Is a wife not to be allowed to save her husband's life? I don't know how much about law, but I am certain that there must be laws permitting such things as that. Have you no knowledge of such laws, you who are a lawyer? You must be a very poor lawyer, Mr. Krogstad.
Maybe, but matters of business, such as business as you and I have had together, do you think I don't understand that? Very well. Do as you please, but let me tell you this. If I lose my position a second time, you shall lose yours with me.
Nonsense, trying to frighten me like that. I am not so silly as he thinks.
And yet,
No, it's impossible. I did it for love's sake.
Mother, the strange man has gone out through the gate.
Yes, dears, I know. But don't tell anyone, not even Father.
No, Mother, but will you come play again?
No, not now.
But Mother, you promised us.
Yes, but I can't now. Run away in. I have such a lot to do. Run away in, my sweet little darlings.